What is up, gigging pros? It's Jared. I'm just rejoining. False start there. Clicked the go live a little too soon. Why am I dressed up? I have got a gig today and another one tomorrow. We actually have two tomorrow, but I can only be at one of the two. But um, figure today it's Friday. It's always exciting getting started the weekend because we've got gigs on the weekend. So today is a wedding down in Racine, Wisconsin. Tomorrow there are two weddings. One is up in Kohler, and then the other, I believe, is in Waukesha. So yesterday in the Gigging Pros and the Gigging Musicians Facebook group, we had a really interesting discussion prompted by the question, should you take every opportunity that comes your way? And there are a lot of people on both sides of this. Some people say, yes, you should take every opportunity that comes your way as a musician because that's how you learn. Some people say, no, do not take every opportunity because some opportunities are not worth your time. Where do I sit? I'm on the no side. Do not take every opportunity that comes your way, because quite frankly, not every opportunity is worth it. Some people just want to take advantage of musicians. And the unfortunate thing is music school and music lessons don't teach you how to value yourself. And so oftentimes you want to take everything that comes your way. And there are some gigs that quite frankly damage the music industry. How do they damage them? By devaluing live music. Some gigs, they want to pay you $50. And if you say yes to that, then you're setting the precedent in the person who's booking mind that a $50 payment is adequate for a musician. It's not. You're worth more. So I'm going to share with you secret number 2 from the Gigging Secrets book. Just have a little bit of time before I have to leave for my gig. So Secret 2, again, this is the Gigging Secrets book. It just came out. It is live. You can get your free copy at giggingsecrets.com. But secret number 2 is you have to know what's possible as a musician. So I'm going to read just a little bit of it. So after a series of failed auditions, the real doubt of not being able to make a living as a performer set in. I realized that my music career clock was ticking. Grad school was coming to an end for me. I'd already spent over 5 years in music school watching fellow students who were years ahead of me graduate with very expensive music performance degrees and then get jobs waiting tables or sitting behind a computer. I noticed this happen over and over again. Occasionally, there would be a rare musician who would actually get some sort of job as a touring Broadway musician, shout out Keaton, or winning an audition for a regional symphony, but that was rare. I had a choice to make. When I graduated, was I going to keep pursuing music or was I going to fall back into some other career? I started to look at the job market in my city. If I wanted to work as a music teacher as a public school, I could make $32,000 a year starting salary. It's not a cushy living, but it is enough to get by. That wouldn't have really satisfied me. I had previously spent 3 years as a public school music teacher, and while I loved the kids, I really didn't love being a public school teacher. There was so much administration and only so many times that I could teach hot cross buns on the recorder. I would also get frustrated when I had to spend time teaching things that weren't music, such as how to behave in a classroom. So that's when I really decided that I was going to pursue starting Dream City Strings very actively. But like I mentioned before, it was a completely blank slate. I had never done anything like this before. So I didn't know what to do, and I couldn't find anyone to help me in the music building. None of my teachers had experienced creating something like this. Many of them were part of the musical 1% that were successful in their auditions, got jobs at the local symphony or opera, and then returned to academia to supplement that income. So I had to turn elsewhere. First thing I did was I reflected back on when I played in a wedding group in my past. I had subbed for them 5 years ago, and then I did some research on them, snooped on all of their social media accounts, their online presence, and I discovered something different about what they were doing compared to what most musicians do. Most of us as musicians go through a similar process when we start out. We become passionate about music. Then we become passionate about performing music. We study technique, we study the history, the theory behind it. We get really good at our music, and then we can't stop talking about the techno babble of music. And that's a term I learned from one of my marketing mentors that represents all the nitty gritty geek out stuff that's fun to talk about, but only appeals to musicians who can't actually book you. And that's evidenced on many musicians' websites. Maybe yours is like this, where their bio highlights the long list of teachers, their gigantic list of equipment and repertoire, and even some of the amazing techniques they learned on a retreat to study their instrument in a foreign country. Is your bio guilty of this? I'm going to just skip a little bit. I later learned the vocabulary to describe what this one group was doing that nobody else was doing. They were positioning themselves for high paying wedding gigs. And so that's when I realized, too, I need to position myself for the type of well paying gigs I wanted. And instead of positioning myself for other musicians, I needed to make conscious choices about aligning myself and making myself as appealing as possible to the kind of people who could pay me to play for them. That's when I realized that gigs are not booked by musicians. Gigs are booked by people hosting events. And positioning yourself to best serve those people is how you maximize your chances of being booked by them. That inspired me to keep digging because I wanted to know how much that group was making per gig. This would help me figure out if what I was trying to do was even possible or worth it. I had this goal of $32,000 a year in mind because if I returned to the teaching field, that's how much I would make. I then reversed engineered the group that I played for. I mystery shopped them. I figured out how much they were charging per gig. I created a fake email address, submitted an inquiry on their website pretending that I was getting married. I asked for their rates, and I discovered that they were charging $600 for a wedding ceremony for 3 musicians. That's how they were able to afford $200 per person. Later on in my journey, I actually discovered that you shouldn't pay musicians completely equally without adding a profit margin in. And you'll learn that in the gig payout schedule secret. So, based on this and my goal of $32,000 per year, I could figure out how many gigs I would need to play in order to make that salary. I divided $32,000 a year by $200 per gig and discovered that I needed to be getting 160 gigs in order to make that happen. 160 gigs a year is about 3 gigs a weekend, which is doable. You can play Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But there are ways to play around with this formula, these numbers, to make it less work for you. Of course, less work is always better. And then there is a formula to figure out how many gigs you need to play and how much you need to be charging per gig in order to make your salary goals. So that is secret number 2, that it is possible to make a living as performing, and that's in the Gigging Secrets book. So get your free copy at giggingsecrets.com. Remember, you are just 1 gig away. Thanks for watching.